Hi everyone. A little while ago I shared some pages from my notebooks and some people got in touch to say they'd really enjoyed that and wondered if I could do a slightly deeper dive into some of the notebooks behind the new book Final Cut. So that's what I've done here. I hope you enjoy it. So I've tried to keep these pages more or less chronological, group them by chronology anyway. So this is one of the first pages really from the book that became Final Cut. So we can see here the beginnings of the idea of Daisy and the idea that most people believe that she's run away, although the implication there is that some people believe that she hasn't and she was killed. And first time probably I mentioned that Alex is beginning to have suspicions. And we can also see a reference there to constellations. There's a little bit of astronomy in the book and stargazing, so this is where that kind of began to emerge. Here we see a reference to he could be an amateur filmmaker. I actually don't remember who that is related to. Probably a character who didn't survive one of the edits. This is quite a while back now, so I can't really remember. Again there it says village has buried it, so I think I was thinking a lot about secrets in this book. Secrets and things that are hidden and yeah, buried, so there's a reference there to that. So here's an early note of me getting to grips with Alex's character, I suppose. I think it's very important to understand what's vital to the character, what the character is looking for and what their motivation is. It's one of the most, if not the most vital thing, I think, for the book. So here's me trying to get to grips with that. It's interesting because here's an example of a character who has sort of two motivations here. She wants to make a film and then find out what happened to Daisy, but really they're both part of the same underlying need that she's trying to fill, which I suppose is to feel valuable or useful or a sense of fulfillment. So both of those, although they're two slightly different desires, they kind of speak to the same underlying need, which is for self-fulfillment and self-actualization. I think it's very important in a book to try and understand the what if. So what is the question that you're exploring, or that your character is exploring? And I've written here, what if a documentary filmmaker goes up to make a film about a cosy village and ends up making a film about a horror show? So that's me sort of grappling with the premise of the book and trying to really get that firm in my head, because I think unless you've got that idea, that spine of the book, if you like, it's difficult to then flesh things out unless that's really concrete and solid. And here we see an example of some ideas that didn't make it to the draft even. So here we see if someone is trying to get her to leave, they might break into the cottage, maggots in the fridge, disconnect the power, the oil, coal, elements, weather, etc. So I suppose here I was really looking at how the antagonists of the book, some of their methods of attack, none of which in this case really made it to, well, certainly not past the first draft. I don't even think they really made it into the first draft. Another example here of me playing with an idea. I think here I was trying to get to an understanding of what the triggering instant of the book was, or the inciting instant, the moment that everything changes for the character, or the moment that the questions that the reader will have and the character has throughout the book that you hope will be answered by the end, the first moment at which those questions are going to be raised in the reader's mind. And again, here's me playing with an idea for a trigger that didn't make it into the draft. And here I'm getting to grips with some of the atmosphere of the book, lights on in the empty house. So a fairly trivial observation or idea. It's not really going to win any awards, but all that kind of stuff starts to build a world in your head, I think, that then makes the whole setting of the book feel real, which to me was very important because I was setting it in a fictional place. So those kind of tiny details are really important. So even at this stage, I'm still also looking at the project as a whole. So not even the micro level of character, story, plot, but actually what is it I'm trying to achieve? What is a thriller? What makes a thriller different from a mystery? What makes it different from a whodunit? And I think it's important to remember those things so you can take a step back if you need to really refocus your mind on the bigger picture. So by now I'd actually done a draft, and you can see here I've written idea for edit. So now I'm starting to look at the material I have and how I'm going to mold it into the book I want it to be, how I'm going to streamline things, how I'm going to make things read nicely on the page, make sense, and really to how I'm going to take this raw material and make it work as a book. So here's me noting an idea of something I could try, which is a radical reworking of the opening. The opening pages of a book are really hugely important, and I think lots of people trying to write a novel, I think, fall down at that though, because they think they have to get them right first time. And I think, yeah, with all of my books now, the opening scene was written fairly late on, or edited drastically fairly late on in the process. Just because it does really need, in a weird way, the opening scene is almost synonymous with the finishing touches. They're the entrance way into the book. They're the introduction into the novel, obviously. So they can't really be rushed and they can't really be done too early, which sounds kind of perverse, but I think it's true. So even though I've done a draft by this point, I'm still making character notes. Here's a note about a character called Dev. This is just me trying to edit the book down. Originally there were many more postcards. So the antagonist, or the person who'd sent Alex the postcard that first encourages her up to Blackwood Bay, originally there were a number of postcards that followed that. But I felt that kind of just distracted from the book and was an ingredient too much. And again, notes here about the films as well. Although vital to the book, originally there were many more of them described, and again it just sort of slowed down the narrative. I was interested, I think, in elucidating some of the lives of the characters, the minor characters, but actually I think a lot of that had to go because it slowed things down and because it wasn't that interesting, I suppose, to anyone perhaps other than me. It's interesting to note here, I think the research is getting more specific. So the thoughts and notes that I'm making, because by now I was redrafting and editing, so I'm becoming much more, I know much more about what it is I need to know and what I need to find out and what I need to be taking notes on. So I'm honing in really on the finer detail, I suppose, of the story and of the background. Still some ideas coming through, but really now I'm kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty, I suppose. So notes about derealization and dissociative amnesia and so on, and fugue states. So here I was reading books, medical papers, cases of people who'd suffered these kinds of conditions, and just jotting down things that I thought were useful or thought were interesting or thought resonated in some way. There's a note there, you can barely see, things rarely fit into a neat pattern or diagnosis. That's just a reminder to myself really that research is all well and good, but you have to allow yourself to bend things slightly. It is fiction after all, and that's not doing a disservice to whatever condition or set of circumstances you're writing about. Because in real life things, rarely fit into a neat pattern. And here's an example of a note when I was trying to figure out a plot point, which to anyone who's read the book probably will make sense. But so again, this is fairly late on now. So this was presumably, if I remember rightly, I knew that something had to happen here, but couldn't quite figure out how it was going to happen. So in the editing stage even, I'd probably put big question marks, notes to self in the document, and here's me figuring out what's going to actually go there. So yeah, so that's that. So all that finally fed into the book that became Final Cut, which is out now. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments below, and if you've got any questions, do ask them. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.